File transfer complete.
This is the Arizona Podcast. Stories about the people, places, and events found along the highways and back roads of the Grand Canyon State.
And good morning. How are you? It is Chris. I am host of the Arizona Podcast, and we're trying to do yet another live version. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, which will be kind of exciting for me or very boring for you. I'm actually doing this as a live stream on YouTube. So if you'd like to see my ugly mug, it's pretty easy to do. Just go to youtube.com and search for Arizona Podcast, or the direct URL is youtube.com/@Arizona Podcast. This is just giving me a chance to fool around with the whole live stream. I'm using 3 different cameras and hopefully be able to drop in a few pictures of the location we'll be talking to and talking about today. So for those that don't know, I am based in Fort Mojave, Arizona, which is right along the Colorado River, just across the water from the entertainment center of this part of Nevada. On that side of the river would be Laughlin and Bullhead City. So weather reports tell us today, clear skies, and we'll be in the 1-teens once again. I want to remind you, you can join us on social media. We're pretty much everywhere at Arizona Podcast. That includes Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We're doing our best, even Threads. We're trying to do that, and to give you as much information as possible. Again, if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for hanging in there. I'm hoping that it's working. I have a live symbol, which means that's happening. So now I'll turn my head into this direction. And what I need to do is make sure that I bring in the right people at the right time and I press all the right buttons. I hope you'll bear with me as we try to make this happen. And by doing this and turning that button down, I get to say hi to Kenneth Large. He is in Amboy, California at the historic Roy's Motel and Cafe. Good morning, Ken. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? I am well.
I'm glad all the buttons are working and we're able to get this show. Last week was kind of a disaster, but right now everything's looking fine for us. I'm glad you're able. Now, are you joining us from Roy's, or are you hanging out in Wonder Valley somewhere?
I'm in 29 Palms.
Wonderful.
Because as soon as we're done, I'm going to attend an event. The Route 66 Museum in Victorville is having an event today, and we're going to attend that.
Oh, wonderful. And I hope if you get the chance, please, Mary and I are sending out greetings to Miss Nicole, who is always somebody wonderful to speak with and talk to there at Roy's. And she's one of your good people. So we always try to stop by on our road trips from San Diego. So tell us, and then let me see if we can take care of this. Of course, we're talking about the beacon of Route 66. And Roy's Motel and Cafe. A lot has been going on. And you and I had the opportunity to sit down and try to put a show together last March, and things kind of fell apart. And for that, I do apologize. And I am now very grateful you're able to rejoin the Arizona Podcast so we can talk about not only the history, what's happening today, and what the future looks like for Roy's. And again, thank you for joining us on Arizona Podcast. My history as I know it, it all started back in 1938 as a service station and gas station. And since that time, things have changed. When you guys erected the big, beautiful sign back in 1959. And again, I will share a very short but very boring story of enjoying Route 66 in the summer of 1969. And I still remember traveling westbound on Route 66 and seeing the iconic neon sign. It was something to see because there's pretty much nothing from the Colorado River west. And I have to tell you, that sign is it's like coming home and knowing that it all comes together. So if you wouldn't mind, Ken, I'm going to step aside and share with us, if you would, please, for those that don't know, what's going on and what is the history of Roy's Motel.
So the history is much like what you stated. 1938, Roy's was built on a 4-acre lot. It was built out of leftover railroad ties. The inside of what's now my soda room still looks like a railroad tie log cabin. In those days, it was a 3-day wait for car parts to come from Los Angeles. And
Mhm.
so what happened is Mrs. Crowell got tired of the car customers wanting to eat dinner at their house, sleeping on their porch. And she essentially told Roy that his new parts room was going to become a cafe. And that's where the cafe and gas station part came in.
Ah.
And another establishment used to be next door that had some little cabins that was called Bender's One Stop Shop. And I believe the Crowells eventually bought that. And that was what initiated the hotel part of Roy's. It's gone through some changes over the years. It didn't originally have the Gougie hotel lobby with that iconic kick up. It was just another smaller building. And then the back hotel is newer. It was built in the 50s. And like you said, the neon sign was actually a retirement gift for Roy in
Ah.
1959. Currently, what we have going on is we've been working really hard all year long on a number of infrastructure projects. So we've got a gas meter for the first time in 30 years. We've run natural gas
Hmm.
new lines to all the little cabins, the gas station, and the hotel lobby. We've added a generator that kicks on automatically because one of our issues is if the power grid goes out here, we can't pump gas. We have old time mechanical gas pumps
Hmm.
and they can't be manually plugged into anything. Um, so we've got a big generator project that's just about complete. We've run new electric lines to everything. Including the sign. And the next thing is we're about halfway through completing a new sewer system that's been modernized so that we can eventually have the cafe open. The next hurdle will be getting water, which in the history part of Amboy, the water came from 1904 to 2004 by a 100-year contract that did not get renewed.
Oh, I did not
Currently,
know.
Currently, we have a well, but the well water is not considered potable. It has to get filtered, and it's very, very salty, which makes sense since they've been mining salt in our area for 200 years.
Right. And for those that don't know, the cabins are not up for rent, as they say, but the plans are to get those cabins renovated. Like you said, you're putting gas, new electric, and you're getting things together. And I understand you're going to stay to its natural state. The cabins will reflect the times of the 1950s and 60s, correct?
That is absolutely correct. So we will be finishing them. They won't be identical. They'll all be 50s styled. We like to use period pieces in them. There'll be a few modern touches in that the televisions will be modern televisions that look like a retro television. There'll be an
Oh,
old time TV case with a new flat TV inside of it, essentially. But other than that, it will be 50s styled from the tile to the furniture, everything, so that it's like you took us when you open the door. We want you to step back in time to how it was in its heyday.
wonderful. Now, one of the things you just said, and I'm glad and to learn because I'll be today years old. I always thought it was Googie architecture. It's Gucci, is that correct?
It could be that I'm wrong and you're correct.
I don't know.
I've heard it stated. The problem is I've heard it spoken both ways.
Gotcha. I haven't found anyone. I just figured because you said it that way, you said it so authoritative. Then I'm gonna roll with that. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that understanding when people say what is that architecture, if you take a look at the reception hall or the main room of or the hotel itself. You can tell by the way it's displayed, it's that corner looking unique architecture of the 1950s, prominent, of course, in the 60s as well. And then it kind of faded out, but it's still kind of interesting to go up and down Route 66 and still see that architecture in a lot of the buildings.
It is. It's just interesting because I feel like in modern times things are so linear, so square, perfect geometric shapes. And in those days, the heyday, the 50s, cars, buildings, everything was rocket and space age style, and it didn't have to be so cookie cutter and uniform. I also am a big fan of all the Batwing gas stations that are along Route 66.
Gotcha. And I was speaking with Leanne from Oatman last week's show, and I had asked her if there was a car counting or a people counting available to how many people travel Route 66 through the city of Oatman. And I'm going to pose the same question to you, Ken, if you don't mind. Um, do you have a count of the amount of people that travel old Route 66 in front of Roy's? Is there a way to get a count of that by any means?
So we don't count the ones that don't stop.
Right.
And I'm sure that's a huge percentage. But what we typically do is we can quite literally look at our register at the end of the day and tell how many transactions we did. Now, a transaction might be a family of four. It might not just be one person.
Sure.
But in general, I estimate that on a slow day, we see in the middle of the Mojave 800 or 900 cars go by.
Right. That would just be an estimate of what you see out the window, correct?
On one day, on a slow day. On the weekend, I'm going to say it's much more than that. It's 3 or 4 times that. I'm going to say Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Roy's, we probably have, on a good weekend, we'll have 2,500 or 3,000 people a day.
Easy, yeah. Now, Mary and I travel that road quite often between here in Fort Mojave on our way to San Diego. And one of our big things is, traveling up Wonder Valley and seeing the Roy sign coming back in the evening. You can see it glowing across the desert, which is kind of fun to see. But one of the things that I do notice is the amount of traffic on Route 66, even considering it's closed when you're heading eastbound on Route 66 from Amboy, heading towards the state line, because it's still closed at Kelbaker. I'll be speaking with the president of the Southern California Route 66 Association in a couple of weeks. Any idea when they're going to get that road open to even bring in more people?
So, we've been trying to meet newer people. You always want to meet the right people. And so I've been speaking with the field service representative for the county supervisor in our area, and they are totally behind us. And my understanding is the funding for the bridges in my area is pretty much in place, but it's controlled via San Bernardino County Public Works, and they put the bridges out in contract blocks. So there's a couple I hear that are getting ready to get worked on, but not all 7. He does not feel confident that it will be open by 2026, but that it eventually will. I've been told 2027, but I don't know how accurate that is.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know that there's a lot of things. People are still along that stretch from Kelbaker into Essex are really trying to, revitalize that stretch in hopes of. But I have to tell you, there's a little bit of renegade in me, and that is last March when the 2 bridges just east of Roy's were washed out. I went ahead and traveled on the closed road anyway and kind of went through the gully washers to make my way to Kelbaker versus the 90-minute drive over to Ludlow and then back onto Interstate 40. I'm still not tempted enough to go around that road barricade at Kelbaker and see, the old Roadrunner and all that's out in, just east of you. I don't know what the road holds for me, but that is one of the things. Every time I'm out on that road, I want to go out and look and see what's there. But kind of a bummer that's been closed for so long, as well as the bridge, which is just west of Ludlow. What is it, like 50 or 60 yards away? It's been closed since the washout like 10 years ago. So I'm really hoping by 2026 we can get some people to get those things up and running so we can all enjoy the centennial. And like you said, you'd like to have those cabins ready to go for visitors and tourists. They can still get to you from either Ludlow or 29 Palms or Kelbaker Road off Interstate 40. So, you guys are still in good shape there.
Yes, I'd like to think we are, but I'd love for that road to be open. My first time when I came to town as a kid, we got off Interstate 40 and cruised down 66 from Essex. And I feel like it'd be great to do that again. We've been told that the town of Essex was purchased in its entirety by one buyer. I don't know who it is,
Right.
but I'd love to make friends with them because now we have a section of road between 2 towns that are both going to be open, and I feel like it's much more pertinent. The other thing that's good that I think we have going for us is they made the section of Route 66 that Roy's is on I think from the state line going west, has now a scenic national byway. So I'm hoping
Oh,
that helps out and gives us a little more status, and the right officials see us and get us on their radar. Currently, I've got to hand it to Don Rao. She really seems to be getting on services in our area and trying to back us where she can.
well, it's just a matter of time, I guess, is if we can get it all going. Somebody used or coined a phrase, the $1 million bridges. So what they're saying is each one of those little gully bridges on Route 66 between, pretty much Barstow to the state line cost about $1 million to repair. So that has a lot to say. I kind of hope that they would put that as a priority, just simply because Route 66 has saved me no less than a half a dozen times when traveling back and forth when something happens on Interstate 40. I mean, if there's a truck accident, and it happens a lot on Interstate 40, there's no side roads. You're stuck on Interstate 40. There was one maybe about a year ago that it was closed for like 8 hours and nobody was going anywhere unless you knew how to get onto Old Route 66. We happened to get on, I always forget the name of the little town where the Baghdad Cafe is.
Newberry Springs.
Thank you, Newberry Springs. We ducked off. We saw it on our map, our Waze, that there was a problem on Interstate 40. And we jumped off Route 66 there, and we were pretty much one of a dozen cars that were traveling eastbound. But that line it was miles long. So Route 66, although the original highway, the Mother Road, can be used in those problems when you can make that happen. I mean, when you think about it, when I came out to see you last March, I could not get to you from Kelbaker, which meant I had to spend an hour and a half to Ludlow and back on Route 66 to get to Amboy Road. That was just crazy. So I always hoped that there was a priority there to make sure that happens, because you can take Goff's Road now off Interstate 40 and still head eastbound and make it to the border. So there are things to do, but that stretch that goes to Essex from Amboy, I wish that would open up. There are a lot of unique little businesses. There's a Roadrunner out there. I understand they're rebuilding that. They're trying to bring that back to life. So a lot of things in Essex. A lot of people don't know Essex was made famous. Was it Johnny Carson that made that famous as well? It's similar to you in Amboy, is it not? I mean, it was pretty much a watering hole for cars and trains, correct?
It is very similar. Both started out as railroad towns. Just Amboy, the well water was always too salty. They had to just build a train tank that they dumped water trains into for the other trains to pass by and get water from. In Essex was a well that was quite good, and so there was actually for a long time in the teens, the prominent building in town was a well pumping station that the railroad operated.
Gotcha. And the other thing that's kind of interesting, maybe a lot of people don't know, but if you spend too much time on YouTube, which I've been prone to do, you can get lost in the world of YouTube, is understanding that Amboy Airfield, which is not an official title, was one of the first, if you want to call it, an airport in California. And if you watch some of the videos of those that land their little planes, it's a big deal for them to land at Amboy Airfield and then literally take their plane on Route 66 to taxi to Roy's Cafe. I'm just amazed by the videos I get to see about that.
It's pretty fun, and it's unique to see. You don't see people in the United States landing on dirt runways in the Mojave all the time. It just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And it's unique when we get a couple of them together. Sometimes I'm shocked by the size of plane, big or small, but every once in a while we get somebody that comes in a 80 or 90-year-old biplane that would be period correct for our 1930s airstrip. And I find that amazing to see a 90-year-old plane landing on a 90-year-old airstrip in a town that's more than 100 years old, come down the street. It's really unique, all the travelers from the other countries, of course, they are shocked when they see a plane coming down the street, and the fact that it parks amongst the cars, it's just a truly unique experience. It really is. It makes me happy every time I see it. I call it happy chaos because it gets to be a lot of looky-loos sometimes, but that's what we want.
Sure. Yeah, well, I always find it interesting again to watch it on YouTube, is to watch their landing experience on the Amboy airfield, and then because it's basically just level dirt, and they're able to do it. And it's interesting how they fly by a few times and kind of get a feeling from the air perspective before they do land. But a little history here. A lot of people may not know that not only is this one of the oldest airfields in California. Rumors of the stars. Now, I understand it hasn't happened in a while, Ken, but you want to confirm some of those rumors that the likes of Harrison Ford and Anthony Hopkins used to come out and grab a cup of coffee at Roy's just to fly out and have some fun.
So Anthony Hopkins, that's what I've been told. Harrison Ford, I can absolutely confirm because he got photographed lots of times. And Harrison Ford, airplane enthusiast that he likes the fact that he could come out, land, park his plane, get a room in those days, and sometimes he would come in and just randomly serve people in the cafe.
Oh.
He was friends with Buster, and so sometimes you'd come in and randomly it'd be Harrison Ford. And, things didn't get out as much in those days. We didn't have YouTube or the internet or lovely podcasts to share with the world. Things
Right.
were a bit more localized, so it was something he could do to not be overwhelmed by throngs of people in the city and still have a good time and see people.
And as a former drummer myself, I am a huge, or still am, for the late great Neil Peart from the band Rush, and he included you in one of his books. That he included Roy's was one of his favorite destinations. So I always found that kind of interesting.
It's pretty fun, and in modern times, we're in a number of things. There's a group from Ivory Coast that has a rap video where they've turned the post office into a old time bank, and they robbed it dressed as Wild Wild West heroes. There's another video that is the current singer. She used to be a Disney star, Olivia Rodrigo. One of her Sour Story music videos. She actually sings in the center. She sings in the middle of the gas pumps at Roy's.
And is that the same one, or was that somebody else that used the old piano in the house across the street as part of the music video? Was that the Olivia?
I believe it was someone else.
Was that some? Yeah, I mean, there is a long list. I'm trying to find my notes here. What has happened? Of course, we brought it up the last time I saw you. The movie The Hitcher with Rutger Hauer was also done at Roy's. I'm taking a look at the list here. I get it. It was the music video Hero with Enrique Iglesias, and he used the piano that is still there in the house across the street from Roy's. Not much has changed in that. Back in '93, Brad Pitt in the movie California used that. The Lost Art of Keeping a Secret. That was also another music video. Queens of the Stone Age used it as one of their videos. Again, I mentioned Neil Peart. Part of the background of Twister was filmed out there. Bob Dylan's painting of the Roy sign. I mean, there's a long, long history of Roy's. And I believe when I was doing some research last year on Roy's, it is unofficially the official most photographed sign on Route 66. So we can't substantiate that. At least I haven't been able to, but I understand that's something, a feather in your cap, yeah?
That's what we've been told. Of course, it's a badge we wear proudly. We don't have any kind of actual way to verify it, but we independently get told that so much that I believe it. And someone who is a neon fanatic, and I believe they work at the Neon Sign Museum, they told us that as well. And I can believe it, considering just the simple fact, the number of people that have come in to show me the Roy's neon as a tattoo.
Oh, And you've personally seen the tattoo, have you?
Hundreds of them. That's why it's so shocking to me.
So let me see if I can do this. Is of course this is a visual, not an audio. I'm going to change cameras here, and then somewhere in here in my list, I do have the Roy's sign. So I've put that up for those watching on YouTube. The Roy's Motel and Cafe neon sign during the day. I didn't get a picture of it, which leads me to other interesting facts of interest. Is understanding, and I brought this up. You were a pop-in guest on my live from the Main Street of America broadcast out of Kingman, just to give us an update. And we had talked about the church that sits across the street. Now, I'm always kind of to learn about a building, and we had talked again about the great group that came out to help save it, because I don't understand how people can vandalize old buildings, whether they do graffiti or break all the windows or they rip out a panel, or for some reason there's this need to destroy history. And that group came out. Please give me their name again.
E. Clampus Vitus.
And they're better known as?
Clampers.
Clampers. So the Clampers, we came out after all the... perfect timing. We came out after they were done with their day, and they had come out and had some beautiful old wood that they were able to go in and save the windows. So they've covered the windows, they etched crosses in the wood, and what this is doing is saving that church. And for those that don't know, the church across the street, the parish, was founded in 1950, and in 51 it was renamed St. Raymond's Church. There's a plaque out there that you can learn about. It served the miners and the railroad at that time, and the beautiful work that was done. Again, I'm going to change pictures here on YouTube, and if I do my if I press all the right buttons, the mural that's on the inside. Again, Miss Nicole of Roy's gave me a personalized tour of what's left of the town of Amboy. And I'm showing the picture now of that beautiful mural, and I am so happy the Clampers were able to come in, donate their time and their services and their expertise to save that mural. Any history that you can share on that, so maybe when people drive by, they can look over and see the parish?
You know, a couple of interesting things. The one that I still haven't found the answer to is that church was named a different name the first year, and they changed it to St. Raymond's. And I haven't been able to find in any written document or anything the reason why. That's one question. The mural was done by a war veteran after the war. He came in, and it was a Korean War veteran, I believe. His initials are on there, but I do not know his name. And it really has stood the test of time. It's really, to me, when I look at it, it looks shiny and new. It
does. It does.
It's great. The church was open for 20 years. Interestingly, the first couple married in the church there ran a restaurant that was the best Mexican restaurant in the town where I live for like 30 years. And the lady who was the first lady married in the church in Amboy is the only named resident of the town that's no longer there, the ghost town of Siberia, California, because there's a church document announcing their marriage that says Rosa Martinez from Siberia, California. And Coy Limon married in the church. I believe it was September of 1957. I feel like the church was a really great testament to the people and their resourcefulness and resiliency in the desert in those times. I mean, when people come to Amboy, especially in the summertime, the busy season, the first thing they notice is the temperature.
Right.
These people were attending Sunday service in that church with no air conditioners. There's no fans in there. And it was made for about 100 people. And my understanding is that it usually had about 100 people, that it was stayed full when it was open. Local workers, the ladies in town, began to ask the local workers in the salt mines here on the flats to donate a portion of their pay. And each year they'd go back to the Church Society in Illinois and ask them for a little help I want to say it took them like 13 years to get enough money to build the church. It was a really big deal. And so locally it became the kind of focal point of the community. 5 or 6 towns, Essex. If you went to church, you went to church in Amboy. And, in the 50s, 60s, a ride to Amboy from Essex was a long ride. 60
Oh, I
miles
bet.
was a lot
Yeah.
different, lot different ride 60 miles was in those days than it is now. For one, people weren't cooking along the road at the speed they are now. Um, it's interesting that the schoolhouse was also in the same area, and that when Route 66 changed alignments, they just picked up the schoolhouse and moved it over some. And then eventually, when they built a new school, they carried it across the street, and it became the community center because, like Essex and the Johnny Carson show, there was no television in Amboy.
Right.
Um, if you didn't have church activities or a community movie night in the community center, that was it. You had the stars in your books.
One of the things I love about the Mother Road is I learned something new on every one of my travels. So even if I've been by something 1,000 times, I try to take a moment to learn part of the history and the past of what happens. Now, I don't have it off the top of my head, but it was the original city of Baghdad. Was that the closest, or was it Siberia that was closest to Amboy?
No, it was Baghdad.
Oh, so it was Baghdad, which was the next town west of Amboy, which was a flourishing town. Everything kind of changed. Burris himself quoted as saying that his business went down to absolute zero the day I-40 opened. And it pretty much took away all the Siberia and Baghdad and the small little towns along Route 66 as he headed off to Ludlow. And all that's left of Baghdad is a small little plaque under a tree. But I was able to make my way to the Baghdad Cemetery, which is on the other side of the BNSF railway. And I understand that they keep a really close eye on it, so I tried to be as respectful as possible. And I was able to make one of my Mother Road Minutes, which is a video you can find on YouTube about the cemetery itself. I don't remember the gentleman's name, and I need to return the email, but he wrote a book about a murder that happened in that area. And he says that the storyline that he does in his book, actually one of the people in the graves at that cemetery. So I'm learning more and more as I make my way up and down the travels of Route 66. And as the plan is to make it to Chicago. I have been to the very border of Illinois on Route 66, but that and west. I've made it all the way to the pier. But now I need to finish that trip. So Mary and our plan is to make our way east and actually make it to the city of Chicago, and that way we shall have traveled every inch of Route 66. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Now, as we speak, Okura, who pretty much the man that saved Amboy, am I correct? You have a big event. Let me take a look at my notes here. November 30th. I understand you have a huge event coming up. I hope you don't mind. Is that one of your big secrets, or is it public knowledge?
It's not a big secret. We're matter of fact, we're getting ready to announce it. This next weekend, we have our annual meeting of the California Historic Route 66 Association,
Right.
And we'll be putting out the flyers. The digital flyers out already. It should be a great event. And so, not to switch gears on you, but just real quickly about Baghdad.
Okay.
It's Mr. Reyes that wrote that book, and the Clampers, those good bunch of guys, the Clampers have installed a new historic marker out there as well.
Oh, so it's no longer a little sign under the tree.
No, on the other side of the road, which is where Baghdad's runways used to be, and during World War II, there's a famous plane crash there. I believe it was World War II. There's a famous plane that crashed out there, a training plane that gets visited. They built a new, like you say, it's kind of remote in the middle of nowhere on a just lonely stretch of 66. There's a new historic marker out there.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. Now that gives me a reason to head back out that way from Amboy Road. I'll make my way west to Ludlow before jumping on the 40. I'd like to see that.
In my event, the Clampers are also going to be installing a fourth historic marker in Amboy. That'll be one for, as you said, it'll be something for Mr. Okura. This event is kind of a memorial to Mr. Okura. It'll be a good event, and it should be off the charts amazing. I think we're starting at around 10, and we have different things all throughout the day. There'll be a raffle. There'll be a big reveal of the historical marker as well as a reveal of something else. I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but I believe it's 19 feet tall.
You know what? I saw. I think I saw. My mouth isn't working. I saw a poster of the event online somewhere, so maybe people already know. But if you want to research it or leave it a secret, but you can get out there. It's 11 a.m. on November 30th that people can come out and see this unveiling. I wish Mary and I could make it. I'm trying to move things around. I'd like to come out and be part of it, but something tells me parking will be in one of the washes if you're not there early enough. I understand overnight camping's available if you're willing to do it with no services. Correct?
Correct. And so more than likely the clampers will be camped out the night before. I'm going to have my rig out there. Huge number of the Juan Pollo Albert's restaurant chain. They found a huge number of the original Juan Pollo owners and their families. They'll all be camped out in the back of the old hotel. It should be a really fun event. It should just be a really good time.
Now, next week's meeting with the Southern California Route 66 Association, I'll be talking with him in 2 weeks to see if we can make something happen there and get some more news on that and see how many people will be participating. And you said the big annual meeting's coming up next week in Victorville, correct?
So that meeting is it's actually in Glendora. It's going to include a tour of the Rubel Castle, and interview and speaker guy will be the Donut Man on Route 66.
The big circle of
yep.
How cool is that? All you need now is Danny Trejo with his tacos, and you'll have the whole thing locked in.
That's it. Donuts and tacos in Route 66. What else do you need?
I think we have things covered. Now, besides that event, November 30th, what else is happening at Roy's?
Right now, we've got a lot of shoots going on. It's interesting that the shoots kind of change over time. A lot of companies are doing product ads in our area right now.
Mary and I rolled by one of those. It was, again, for us, I know we're just old people in a truck driving across the desert at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes we can make it earlier depending on the time of the year. But when we hit that Wonder Valley grade and make our way down into the desert, that's when you can tell if the Roy sign is lit. And there was one occasion we peeked over that grade there, and Roy's was lit up. And I'd never seen that kind of lighting before. I could see the sign, but you were just lit up. And by the time we got down to the bottom and jumped on the Mother Road, there was a film shoot going on. And big studio lighting, and they had lit up your gas station, and they had lit up the Roy sign, and it was pretty impressive. And you say this happens quite often.
It goes from a couple times a month to sometimes it's a couple times a week.
Well, that's got to be fun for you, and it creates excitement, yes?
It is, and I'm going to brag a little bit here. I did get to meet Cindy Crawford.
Ooh, there you go. And does she remember your name? That's the important thing.
She probably remembered it that day while she was there. I don't know if now.
And for those wondering what that noise is in the background, I happen to live the back end of my house is on an open desert, so the desert toys are out. So we have to put up with the traffic of that. So I apologize if you're hearing crazy things that are happening on that end. There was something else I was going to bring up, and I wanted to talk about the future of what's going on. And we've talked about the hotel rooms, and hopefully that'll be done by 2026. The sign is in great shape. I last time I was there, you said you were doing some repairs on a few of the segments of the sign. For those that have never seen the sign lit, there's a video online. If you go to, I don't know if I put it on the YouTube channel, that shows, I don't know if you caught that, Ken. You're old if you put the word "the" in front of it. It's on YouTube channel. You're not the YouTube or the Facebook. Miss Nicole invited me to light the sign. And a lot of people don't realize. I thought this was like this unknown thing. People do this all the time. I just saw a new post on your Facebook this morning of another couple coming back for an anniversary, and they were invited to light the Roy sign. How do people get to do that?
Pretty simply, they come around sunset and they come in, and whatever staff's working, they can ask them about it. And usually the first person to ask us, we'll ask them if they want to light it. And we take them over to the hotel lobby, and it's still the old 1950s breakers. It's 3 of them, as you know.
Yep.
They'd control the sections of neon, and we take them over and open up the hotel lobby, and we let them flip the switches so that they can turn on the sign. I think it's pretty cool. And even when things get rewired, there'll be a set of switches at the bottom of the sign, so that we don't have to open the door to the lobby, but they can still go over there and turn on the sign themselves.
I tell you, it was a big thrill for me, and like I said, I posted that all over the place that I got a chance to light the neon sign at Roy's. So as we've talked about the past, we've talked about the present, we've talked about the future. Share with us anything else you'd like to do. I open the mic to you to talk about Roy's. What's on the top of your mind, and what would you like to see happen besides the cafe opening, which I can't wait? I might even be one of your celebrity, if running a podcast makes me a celebrity waiter at the cafe.
So long term, I have three real goals I'd like to see come to fruition, and they'll be year goals. They're definitely long term goals. One is Mr. Okura and Kyle have always had a goal of having the first fire station out here in this area, but making it a vintage style fire station so it can be almost museum of the area and fire station that actually functions, because there's no fire stations out here. So we think it would be great to actually have a working fire station instead of, an hour trip or more for the firefighters to come when there is an issue. The next one is the school is one of the things that's in this area that is not a part of our property. And I've been talking to the Needles School District, and we'd like to acquire the school because the original schoolhouse is on that property. The original turn-of-the-century schoolhouse for Amboy stayed in town. They just picked it up and moved it over across the street twice as the route of 66 shifted a couple hundred yards here. We'd like to get that back in shape and open it up as the old original schoolhouse of Amboy. The third one is I'd really like for us to, I don't know whether it'll be through a land swap because there are some other plots of desert land out here. I'd like for us to gain ownership of the entirety of the runways and go through the process to get it made back to an airport again. And I'd like to find the right investor to help us pave the runway. It'll let a lot more people come to our area, but also, being that this is Route 66, I think it'd be a great place to have an annual nostalgia drag racing car event like the old days on a runway.
Oh, that would be cool, wouldn't it?
I think it would just be great. And someone's approached us about it. We just haven't got the details worked out, and it'll be a while. But I think it'd be amazing to come to a 50s town, stay in a 50s styled hotel, watch your hot rods run like the old days. I just think it would be great.
I think I enjoy the vision, and to help with the vision if I could. I could see vintage planes coming out on the same weekend and make it a huge event. And I could just see it happening now. So I'm going to share in the same vision if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's great. And the people in those old airplanes and old cars, they're my favorite. We get lots of tourists, but the guy that comes by who's taken the time and the energy to put his love and his effort into something that's 50 or 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, like Amboy, to bring it back to life, I think they speak of the best quality of Americans, and I love to see the vintage stuff come back, because you're right. When a 90-year-old airplane comes down the road with a radial engine, it doesn't sound the same as a Cessna.
Oh, certainly. And now Jim Hinckley from Jim Hinckley's America and I shared some time, and he told me of a story of a gentleman that rebuilt an old Harley with sidecar rebuilt it and put his, I believe they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. So they were both in their 70s. I could be wrong. Could even be their 70th wedding anniversary. And they traveled as far as they could to revisit their honeymoon. And I believe they did make it to Southern California. I'll have to check into that. But somebody that does something like that, they can come out with old Harleys and old cars and get some of the car guys to come out and do that as well as the airplanes. I love your visions. I love the future of Roy's Motel. And for those that come out, if I can give a small, just a small piece of advice, I'm gonna talk like an old grandpa here, is that you have cars traveling Route 66. Now the posted speed limit is 55. I don't know if that's the posted speed limit right in front of Roy's or not, but if it is, you have those two Route 66 painted signs on the road in both directions right in front of Roy's, which makes for a wonderful photo op. You guys really need to be careful when you do that. People are zipping by on that road, and for you to lay in the road to have a photo taken. I know Miss Nicole said she posted a little sign. She stuck it on the side of the road to tell people to be careful. But come out and get those photos. There's nothing prettier. Again, I can try to make your sign show up here on my... just be careful out there. The Roy sign is, what is that, 50 some odd feet, correct?
Say it again. I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
No, it's 50 foot tall or better, correct? The Roy sign?
It is 50 feet tall.
Yeah. So, I mean, everybody wants to get a photo. Just be careful out there on the desert roads. That's all I want to bring up. It can get kind of scary. So no more old man talk. Sorry. I try to do my best that I can. Hey, Roy, how can people get a hold of you? I know there's no official website for Roy's, correct?
So it's visitamboy.com is the actual name of the website.
Okay, and they can find out the events that are coming up, and you'll post the information. Again, Scott Petrowski is going to be my guest in, I believe, 2 weeks to talk about all the events, and I imagine he'll have some headline news of the giant meeting that you said is going on in Glendale next weekend. So we're going to find out more information about Route 66 and what's going on. So there's no misunderstanding. You can still pick up some bite-sized morsels at the Roy's Cafe. Mary and I have a small collection of your Route 66 soda bottles. I always forget to pick up my hat, but I love your little trinket shop that people can come by and at least visit Roy's. And your staff has increased if I listened to you correctly. It's just not you and Miss Nicole anymore. You have a group of people in there now.
I do. I also have Heather, who used to be on our social media as Snake Lady with the 15-foot snake. However, she does not have a snake now. She's Heather, the worker in Roy's. And we also hired another very nice young lady named Christina, and they're both amazing. We truly have been blessed with some great employees. I'm very appreciative because I have this dedicated staff who not only works there, but loves the place and is behind it to make the commitment to drive 100 or more miles to work every day.
Oh, and no kidding. I mean, to hit Wonder Grade back and forth to work, that's got to get to you. And again, the reason I bring up the people that you have working there, they are so welcoming. It doesn't matter what time of the day. Mary and I have pulled up. The Roy sign is still lit at 10 to 10. And the door is still open. The close sign isn't up yet. And you walk in the door, and you can tell this is the time of night that, let's hurry up and let's close the place and head home for the night. But not there. It is so welcoming. Everybody that we have met are very sweet and very nice, and they want you to spend as much time as you want. And one of the good news is the bathrooms are fixed, correct?
No, they're not. They're not. We're working on them. One of them is partway done.
For those that don't know, they have been broken for a while. They've had to use there are restrooms available, but you guys are putting in new septic and you're doing your new lines and everything's taking place. I can't wait for the unveiling of the new Roy's. But Ken, I can't thank you enough for being a part of Arizona Podcast. Again, any closing words at all you'd like to share with us?
Please, wherever you go on Route 66, look for the mom and pop. Take the time to talk to them. Shake hands with people. Don't be afraid to ask questions because the people love that. And I feel like you're going to find some of the best pieces of America just our transferred word of mouth history from person to person and stories that you'll find in the local people, whether it be at my place in Roy's or in anywhere else. You go into Walmart, you don't have but 30 seconds to talk to someone. It's in and out. My place, you come on by, sit down, and we'll talk about whatever you want. I feel like a lot more of the places are like that. I like it, that part. And I think that's the best part of Route 66.
And make it part of your plans, whether you're listening locally to Arizona Podcast or if you're listening from across the nation. If you're going to make Route 66 part of the Centennial, make sure you do go by Roy's. It is so worth it. And there's a stretch of Interstate 40 people want to rush. Once you start getting closer to Los Angeles, you guys think that you can just jump in and go. If I could give you any piece of advice, get off. If you're traveling westbound on the 40, get off at Kel Baker. You can't miss it. It'll take you right to National Trails Highway, which is the Mother Road, and go through the city of Amboy. Stop at Roy's, get a picture of the sign, buy a trinket and a nice bottle of cold water, and enjoy yourself and take a few moments to say hello. These people are great. You still have the history books laying on the old cafe countertop. I mean, people can literally learn about Route 66 and Amboy anytime they want. It's like going into a library. So I suggest people do that as well. Again, Ken, thank you so much for being a part of our show. We greatly appreciate it. And we thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the Arizona Podcast. Again, join us on social media. You'll find us on Facebook, TikTok, all of them. And just look for @Arizona Podcast. And again, YouTube, I hope it worked. There's no way for me to monitor it. All I know is I have blinking lights that says everything is happening. And if it's not working, then we're going to go and redo it, and then we'll repost it on YouTube. Nothing more than me talking to a camera, but you'll also get an opportunity to see the fine artwork at the parish that's there in the city of Amboy. I'm going to have Scott Petrowski on 2 weeks from now. We will not be live next Saturday. We will be in San Diego. Mary and I are doing our best to make that all happen. Again, it's been a pleasure. Kenneth Large, thank you again for being a part of the podcast. We do appreciate it. And thank you. We will join you again. Find out more how to support Arizona Podcast at ArizonaPodcast.com. My name is Chris. Mary's there in the background pushing buttons. We'll see you next time on Arizona Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Arizona Podcast. For more information on our podcasts, the people, places, events, or the sponsors heard, visit ArizonaPodcast.com. Available for download everywhere.